Hello traders, this is binaryoptions.net.au and today we're going to teach you how to trade with the pivot points. So what are the pivot points? Pivot points are significant levels that traders use to determine possible areas of support and resistance. Even though they are calculated based on past price action, they are leading indicators because you can actually predict what levels of support and resistance you can find in future price action. These levels are significant because most of the floor traders and the pit traders and even the retail traders like you and me use them to set daily key levels. So the more traders look at the key levels, the better chances we have that price will react to them, either bounce from them or break through them. The pivot point is calculated by averaging the previous day's high, low, and close. Pivot points can be calculated daily, but for longer term traders we also can use weekly and monthly pivot points. Of course, the weekly pivot points will be calculated on the weekly chart by the last week's high, low and close, and the monthly pivots will be calculated on the monthly chart by averaging the last month's high, low, and close. This is what a pivot points or pivot levels look on your chart. As you can see here on the left, when there is low volatility and the daily range is very small, we will get narrow pivot points. And when we have a high volatility and the previous day's range is higher, we will have wider pivot points. The daily range is just the difference between the daily high and the daily low. So the first thing we're going to do with pivot points is to determine the market sentiment. It's important to determine the market sentiment because we are going to look for bearish setups in a dropping market and for bullish setups in a rising market. And since the daily pivots is an average of the previous day high, low, and close, it can give us an accurate reading of the overall market sentiment. The overall sentiment is bullish when price is trading above the daily pivot and bearish when it's trading below the daily pivot. This is helpful because in an up market we try to buy calls and in a down market we try to buy puts because it's easier to trade with the trend and follow the sentiment, the overall sentiment of the market. This is basically what a bullish market looks like. Even though we had a dip and a bounce off the daily support 1, price moved strongly above the pivot at the open and start to trade above it for the entire day. So you can see that here the overall market sentiment is bullish. On the other hand, here we had a massive drop below the daily pivot, which is this black line. The red lines are the daily support 1, 2, and 3, and the green lines are the daily resistance 1, 2, and 3. But here in this example, we drop below the daily pivot, and of course we drop below this area of support, which makes this a bearish market, and we will be looking to buy puts here. Now for the actual setups, when trading with pivot levels or pivot points, we are going to be looking to buy bounces and breakouts. So let's go with this. Support and resistance levels based on pivot points can be used just like traditional support and resistance levels. It's better, of course, if they confluence with historical levels that price has tested in the past. The more times the level has been tested, the stronger it is. A bullish signal to buy calls will happen when the price bounces off support or breaks through a resistance area. And a bearish signal to buy puts will happen when we have a bounce from resistance or a breakout from support. Now let's have a look at this chart so you can better understand what we're talking about here. Here is here's the daily pivot, which is the black line, and every time the pivots drop or rise, it means that we have changed to a new session or it is a new day of trading. So we are going to focus on this central area right here. And as you can see, we were trading above the daily pivot throughout the start of the day until it broke with the daily resistance one. When it breaks with the daily resistance one, and we have a retest of the same area or the same level as support, we have a signal to buy calls on this instrument. Then we have a massive drop, and when price breaks through the daily pivot and this strong area of support, we have a signal to buy puts, and we also have a change in market sentiment for the close of this day, so we will be looking only to buy puts on the support breakouts, and you can see here that these are the daily support and one actually held right here, but it is insignificant for this example because we were closing all the day and volatility was drying up. So we have two clear signals here: a signal to buy calls when we break above the daily resistance one and we test back as support, and a signal to buy puts when we break below the daily pivot, which was a strong area of support, I might add, and of course we break with the low of the entire support range. Now we have a strong signal to buy puts, and both signals end up in the money. Now let's go to the charts. Okay, we're back, and the first thing we're going to learn is how to install the pivot points. MetaTrader 4 doesn't have this indicator by default, so you have to actually download it from us and install it on your MetaTrader 4. And to do that, you go to your MetaTrader 4 folder, then you go to the Experts folder and the Indicators folder. Once you are in the Indicators folder, you just go to your download folder where you have the pivot points indicator, and you drag it to your indicators folder on the MetaTrader 4. I already have it installed, so I'm just going to close these two windows and go to the charts. We have the Aussie US dollar, the US dollar Swiss franc, the US dollar yen, the euro yen, the Aussie CAD, and cable charts right here. What we want to do is we want to go and um, insert the indicator, and to do so, since you installed it from an outside source, you have to go to custom and then click on pivot points, and you can choose whatever color you want. These are the default colors, and you just go and accept the indicator on your chart. And we're going to do that with every single one of these charts, because we're going to go and look for what setups we had today on all of these uh, on all of these currency pairs. So we just need to put the indicator on the GBP USD, and we're going to go. Let's start with the GBP USD. Okay, now this is what the indicator looks like on the 1 hour chart, but since we are trading with daily pivots, it is best for us to look at the 50-minute chart, the 30-minute chart, because you will get a much more overall picture of what's going on right here, and you will also get clear setups, and you will not miss moves, because if we were looking actually at the GBP/USD 1 hour chart, we would have missed this move to the upside. Now the first thing we have to do here is to see that we are trading below the daily pivot. Okay, this is the daily pivot line, and uh, the gray line is the daily pivot. Here we have the daily resistance 1, daily support, no, daily support 1 on red, daily resistance 1 on green, daily resistance 2 right here, and so on. Remember that we are only focusing on today's price action on a cable. Okay, so what happened here is that we went all the way down here and we had a rejection of this previous area of support that confluences with our daily support one. So you might think that here we could have actually a good setup to buy calls on the GBP USD, and you would have been right, okay? But I mean, volatility was very scarce, as you can see, until we actually opened in New York around 9 o'clock, and here's when all the American traders jumped into the market, and we had some data coming out, which was not very good for the United States, that made all the currency prices based on the US dollar jumped a few 40 or 50 pips. In this case, we jumped 60 pips to the upside, and always use levels and trend lines. Okay, we have a descending trend line right here, and when price breaks to the upside, we can wait. I mean, I would wait until we break above these highs and above the daily period to buy calls right here when we break above the daily pivot. Okay, and remember that we need confirmation when every time we break above these levels. Okay, here it's a clear signal to buy calls when we break above these highs, above the daily pivot, and above the descending trend line. Now we went all the way to the daily resistance one. The daily resistance one acted as strong resistance when price stopped uh, around these levels. But remember that we have these two this area of massive range and choppiness. We don't want to be trading inside of this range because we will burn money if we do so. What we need to do is we already know that this move looks very overextended. Okay, so we are planning to buy calls on a small correction. Okay, and we found out or we saw that price actually stopped at the daily resistance one, and when price actually doesn't make new highs or closes above this high or this range, the high of this range, we wait for the confirmation that we have a reversal when actually we break below this low, which will be around here. If you want really to be aggressive, you could have entered here, but I mean this week low, even though we went lower than these lows, didn't close below these lows. So for me, it's not a valid signal until we close below these lows. Now we close below these lows, and R1 has been obviously rejected, so we do have a um, a signal to buy puts right here. This is my area of signal. This is where I would have bought an hourly expiration um, option for the GBP/USD, or an hourly expiration put, which would have ended up in the money, and then we chop all the way here. And remember that when trading with the daily pivots, you will get a few um, a few uh, a few entries or a few signals a day if you're lucky, so you have to be monitoring several markets at the same time. Let's check out now the the euro yen. The euro yen was a classic wash buy scenario. What do we mean by wash buy scenario? If we go to the 1 hour chart, just look at the 1 hour chart and look at this choppy price action. We have been in a choppy price action for the past week, and the low of this choppiness is right here. Okay, and then I mean, it's a super wiki price action, and it's very difficult to trade if you're trading midterm options. Let me just change the color of my horizontal line here. If you're trading midterm midterm options, it's very difficult to trade, because let's say this is the 1 hour chart, right? And if you choose to trade the end of day or the end of week, maybe with this choppiness, you enter at the rejection of this level, you will end up out, or your option will expire out of the money. But when you have a clear wash buy scenario like this one, you need not to let it go. And what do we mean by wash by scenario? If we go back to the 50-minute chart and we go back to today's price action, you will see that uh, we opened higher. I mean, we gapped up from the weekend, and then we failed to go above this high, which usually means a clear wash. A clear wash is a dip which we would have gotten a signal out of when we break below this low and we are trading below the daily pivot. And for me, the signal would be right here. I would have chosen to trade an hourly expiration because we do have this strong area of support that we saw on the hourly chart. And of course, we also have the daily support one and these lows right here. So an hourly expiration option is what um, I would have chosen to trade here. Now we have a rejection of the daily support one, but remember guys that we are still trading below the daily pivot, so we need to be careful when choosing to buy puts when the actual market sentiment is down. So for me, uh, a buy here is a pass. Okay, for me, a signal to buy calls is when we break sharply above the daily pivot and we close above it. Okay, now here I have a signal to buy calls, and I would also have chosen to trade at an hourly expiration option because we are on the 50-minute chart. That would have expired in the money too. And if you continue to look at this is a failed retest of the daily resistance one, so there is no setup using the pivot points here. But when we came here and we made an evening star is this pattern where we have a bullish candle, a doji, and a bearish candle uh, uh, that goes more than half of the previous bullish candle. This is what we call a triple candlestick reversal pattern, and it is right at the daily resistance one level, which would have mean that here we would have taken a short term uh, hourly expiration put that would have expired in the money too. What we were actually looking at, and of course, because we are trading against the trend, this is a more speculative entry. But the rejection of the daily resistance one was, or the daily resistance two, I'm sorry, was clear, and the move looks very overextended. So we choose to trade puts here or to buy puts on a small correction to actually profit from it. And when we actually come back and test this previous level of resistance that was broken as support, we have another signal, and in this case a signal to buy calls when we complete the cycle. Remember that the cycle is actually when we break above resistance, come back to test it, and move up. This is a one of the most powerful setups that you will find using pivot points, and I assure you that if you follow our instructions and look for this kind of setups when you have not such a strong breakout as this one, because this one was a clear breakout, so yes, we do have the opportunity to buy aggressively here, but here we don't, because we actually tested it for an hour before breaking above. We could have gotten uh, or but calls right here, but we don't know if the move is going to go follow through. In this case it didn't. Okay, so we need the retest back of this area of resistance of support, and as you can see we move all the way up here, and this would have been a very strong setup. So this is basically what how you trade using pivot points, and you can download this indicator from binaryoptions.net.au and install it on your MetaTrader 4 to trade like us.